Greetings! Welcome to another tutorial about Bloomreach XM with XIN Mods. In this short video, we're going to talk about why you should consider using Bloomreach XM and XIN Mods together. So let's get into it. So Bloomreach and XIN Mods, why use it? Well, Bloomreach XM, the open source edition is the one that we're talking about here, is really a great CMS. It allows you to quickly build data models using document types and upload images, upload assets, and all this can be done without writing any code. So in a normal project, you often find yourself writing a bunch of CRUD loops where you have to take care of saving information to the database. You have to make sure updates are going through, deletes are doing just fine. But with the CMS, you don't have to do that kind of thing. And that's nothing special. That's not something that other CMSs don't deal to. But in Bloomreach, it's done pretty well. You get a bunch of mature functionality because the CMS has been around for a long time. So managing documents, images, assets, even users can be done without writing one line of code, and it is presented to you in a very stable way. One thing I personally like about Bloomreach is that it is self-hosted, so you're able to host it on your own infrastructure, and you'll be able to maintain your own data, which is very good. And of course, it's, like I said before, it's mature, it's been battle tested, it's used by governments, large retailers, and many other enterprise customers. Now, of course, the CMS is good at a bunch of things, but it's also lacking in a few areas, and especially when you're talking about the open source edition. So when working with this CMS, if you want to do anything front-end related, you have to use this thing called the HST, the Hippo Site Toolkit. And this is tightly integrated in the deployment of your CMS. So anytime you make a change, be it styling, be it changes to a template, you'll have to recompile your entire CMS and restart it to see the changes. And this can take up to a minute, and even longer if you have quite complicated logic going on. And this is unfortunate because especially in more modern workflows, things like hot reloading and instant recompile when you change a bit of SCSS are the default, so you can't really get away with this lengthy type of workflow. Because the open source edition doesn't have any really robust APIs that you can use to extract content from the repository, you'll end up writing APIs that are specific to your knowledge domain every time you start a project. And this means that each project is different, which can become a problem. And the last thing I want to highlight is that moving content is hard. So when you're developing a Bloomreach application, the configurations, the changes that you make to the repository are automatically saved into your Git repo as a YAML file, but documents and images and assets that you have been working with are not. And so there's actually reasonably poor tooling around moving documents across different environments. And so I would say that's a con for the open source edition. Now, one solution to all these problems is to buy a license, because while this is the open source offering, Bloomreach has a very extensive enterprise offering that include things like a GraphQL integration, a bunch of APIs for single page apps, and of course, proper support and help during migrations and all that kind of thing. So if you have money and if you are an enterprise customer, go ahead, buy a license. You'll be happy. But I am a poor developer, so I wrote a bunch of tools that together I call XIN Mods. These all go along with the open source version of Bloomreach. They kind of like live on top and they behave like a normal CMS and side project would. It's free. I'll try and help you if you get stuck, but of course there's no commercial support. But for the rest of the presentation, we're going to have a look at the functionalities XIN Mods add to the open source version of Bloomreach. So the idea behind XIN Mods I've laid out here. To create a set of tools that turns a vanilla Bloomreach XM install into an easy to deploy, fully headless content as a service instance that you can use to quickly model and query information in the Jackrabbit repository. And it should be extendable without requiring extensive code changes. So one of the cons I mentioned before is the lack of the ability to move documents and images and assets between environments. And so the first thing that was built was a package manager. And this package manager allows you to package up different parts of a content repository, download it, and ingest it into other instances. And this is really cool because it means that not only can you move normal content across, you can also move configurations across. And this is very important because one of the goals was also to create a set of tools that allow you to use Bloomreach without having to modify it heavily. And so by being able to just package up the configuration changes in the repository and deploying them onto a vanilla instance and giving them meaning by deploying these packages, you kind of like you make the application itself less important than the content that is in the application. And so that's a very good thing. Also introduced a general purpose API. So of course, a headless CMS should be able to expose all the content that's inside of it to whoever needs to ingest this content. So the XIN Mods contain a number of APIs that allow you to read documents, do complex queries on documents, and even navigate through faceted navigations that allow you to kind of like restructure your content trees in different ways. Now, my preferred way is to interact with these APIs through the XIN Mods npm package, but they are just simple RPC endpoints. And so there is a Swagger documentation as well in the repo that you can find to understand how to interact with these APIs. Another thing that was added was dynamic image manipulation. Oftentimes when you're interacting with images, you need to scale them, or you need to crop them, or apply like a filter to them. And so this is one of the things that is now part of XIN Mods that allows you to do those things without having to write any code or perhaps use a third-party service to do this kind of thing, which is good. It also added image focus. You can now select an area of an image, and when you're cropping, that area will be used as the center to crop towards, which is good for using images in responsive sites, for example. Also, some deployment scripts have been added. This will now allow you to easily configure a little JSON file that has some information about where your MySQL database lives and what, for example, if you're deploying onto Elastic Beanstalk, what kind of application name the EB has. And then when you run this script, it will either generate a Docker image for you or an Elastic Beanstalk zip file that you can just ingest into your AWS account and run up a new Bloomreach instance in literally about 5 minutes. So another thing that's very important is, like mentioned before, extensions to the CMS should not mean that the CMS code needs to be changed. And so a number of common extension points have been provided with default implementations to allow these extensions without code changes. So now you can easily add toolbar buttons, you can add reporting panes, admin panels, and you can use iframe perspectives. So another important thing that was added was a JWT bridge. And this bridge allows you to interact with the CMS from third-party applications. So once a user has been logged in, an endpoint becomes available that will generate a fresh JWT with information about that user, their username, their proper name, and the groups that they belong to. So that if, for example, through an iframe perspective, you expose a tool, that tool can query that JWT, validate it, and understand what kind of user is currently logged into the CMS. And that will allow you to extend the functionality of the CMS by hosting separate applications elsewhere. So again, you wouldn't have to change the code of the CMS. That was a very high-level overview of some of the interesting things that XIN Mods introduces to the open source version of Bloomreach. And so just to summarize, I just wanted to highlight these things. So I wanted to comment on the effects reducing customizations to the CMS code has by making it so that you don't have to change the CMS code. Upgrades to newer versions will be much more straightforward. You won't have to deal with any headaches, usually. And also, being able to simply just run up a bunch of Elastic Beanstalk or Docker containers allows you to easily set up multiple environments. And using the package manager, you can now easily manage content between these environments as well. So by using Bloomreach and XIN Mods together, you'll be able to focus on the problem you're trying to solve. You'll be able to quickly model data and use it without writing any code. You'll be able to easily manage multiple application environments, and you will be able to extend the CMS functionality without modifying its code. If you have any questions, you can totally get in touch with me, and I'd be happy to add some to this. But for now, thanks for watching. If you like this kind of thing, check out the playlist that popped up on the screen. And if you want to be notified when a new tutorial appears, make sure to subscribe. See you next time.